Facebook said, you don't own that. We own that data. And so now he's left in this position where he put years of work into something, was taken down without him having any knowledge or understanding about why, and now he doesn't have any of that material. Ownership of your digital identity is your essential human right, because it is you. I mean, now we do so much on digital. It is you. Why should somebody else own who you are?
In today's episode, we have an exclusive interview with my friend Sandy Carter, the trailblazer who went from building emerging tech in IBM in its early days to working side by side with Jeff Bezos and Jassy at Amazon, part of the team that scaled Amazon from a 12 billion company to a staggering 80 billion powerhouse. And she's not done, ladies and gents. Sandy Carter, CNN's top 10 most powerful women in tech, is now placing her bets on what she believes to still be the next big thing, Web3. As the COO of Unstoppable Domains, a platform for user-owned digital identity, Sandy is leading the charge in revolutionizing how we think about commerce, entertainment, and social interaction in Web3. And guess what? We are breaking some exciting news with Unstoppable Domains right here today on Billion Dollar Moves. Join us as we dive into the viability of Web 3.0 after SBF and uncover how this cutting-edge technology is reshaping the business landscape and how Starbucks, Nike, and even IHOP is already ahead of the curve in Web 3.0 in a way you'd never expect. Investors, builders, be ready for some note-taking this episode. And we were lost in Abu Dhabi with Tyra Banks. So I like that we have an amazing memory together. Sandy, how are you?
I am doing great. And I really miss when we were in Abu Dhabi. We got to dress up, remember our beautiful dresses, and go to the mosque. It was, and I made so many great, long-lasting friendships there too.
We got started on a high and we're continuing on a high together. As always, Sandy, you've got some really exciting announcements that we are breaking in Billion Dollar Moves. So this will be going live as you're putting everything together. And that's a little bit of a teaser for the audience here. But before that, let's unpack a little bit. Sandy, you've been a trailblazer in so many ways for so long, with AWS, with IBM. Talk to us a little bit about who is Sandy Carter and what brought you to this work.
So I've always loved tech. I consider myself a geek girl. I play with tech on the weekends. And I started in IBM really looking to be forward on all the technology. So I started with, banking solutions when banking was like cutting edge. And I ended at IBM working on artificial intelligence. And that was so... think about it. Watson was playing Jeopardy. I got to help with Watson playing Jeopardy and showcasing to the world 10 years ago, by the way, the power of AI. That's when it really started. So many people, Sarah, think, oh, ChatGPT, AI has just come. No, it's been around for such a long time. So into that journey, I left IBM. I actually did my own startup in between. I built a AI engine that was producing almost like a Myers-Briggs for a company, so that you could say, oh, my company's character or personality is this, and here's some of the innovation tactics that could work. I ended up being able to sell that, and I went to work for Amazon Web Services. So you can see the trend here right now is tech. I love tech, but I love tech in a business context, right? How can tech be used to solve a banking problem? Or a problem about how you do innovation in your company. So when I came to Amazon Web Services, by the way, I think it's really fascinating. When I came to Amazon, we were doing $12 billion a year at AWS. When I left in 2021, we were doing $80 billion a year. And what I was asked to do when I came in was to build out our enterprise group. Now, people today are like, what? Amazon's in all enterprises. But when I came in, AWS was primarily used for startups. Like startups were building with it. It wasn't really for like the Goldman Sachs or the very large companies. And that's what I was asked to do. As I was doing that, though, I was focused for a while on regulated industries. And so I started diving deep into my superpower, which is emerging tech. And I found that a lot of banks and hospitals were using blockchain, which is a technology that acts as a digital ledger. They were using that for their supply chains. And I thought, that's really fascinating. Let me really study up on blockchain. And then I was working, again, regulated. I was working with healthcare companies. And they were looking at how can I use AR and VR to do better training for surgeons. And that introduced me to the world of the Metaverse and how companies are using and leveraging these technologies in order to have higher retention and greater training and education. All of those things led me to doing certain side projects. I told you I was a geek. How could you use these technologies to really change the world? And that's where Unstoppable entered in with a digital platform. And that digital platform is for identity. It's based on the blockchain. And we leverage and we use artificial intelligence in certain functions that we have inside. So really coming full circle, right? All emerging tech, but all really looking at that technology from the business outcome it brings and how it can really help to, to really change the world. I mean, some of the tech we had at AWS, we put, people on Mars, or rover on Mars, people on the moon at IBM. And so the technology really has that impact on business, and that's what really makes it special.
Yeah, and Sandy, before we go into Unstoppable, which I think will be the crux of our discussion today, I just want to go back to, your chapter in Amazon, right? Amazon has become a case study in so many ways, but it has been decades in the making, although people think it's an overnight success. And you saw the iterations of, as you said, the building blocks of the enterprise business, right? The cloud services business, and AWS has really become one of the key revenue drivers for Amazon. And working with Jeff in those early stages, what would you say is one or two key takeaways from his leadership and the time that you had in Amazon in building something so different?
I would say I was very lucky and blessed to have worked with Jeff as a founder, and also Andy. Andy Jassy, who's currently the CEO of Amazon, was the CEO of Amazon Web Services. So I really got to know him really well as well. I would say there are a couple of critical takeaways from both of those. Very uniquely, a very large business which is founder-led, which I find, being fascinating. So a couple of lessons learned: customer obsessed. So I worked for companies before that are customer focused. Amazon is customer obsessed. You always work backwards from the customer. Your senior executives aren't spending 20% of their time with customers. They're spending 80% of their time with customers. That was a really huge takeaway for me, which was you've got to be customer obsessed. The second big takeaway was ownership. And with ownership comes mistakes. And you're a better owner, you're a better leader because you made a mistake. Sarah, one of the scariest things I ever did is I had come in, and Charlie Bell, who was leading our technology and operations area, asked me to come and present a big mistake I had made. And I fought like tooth and nail. I don't want to do this. Like, I have all these best practices. I have all these great successes. That's what I want to talk about. And he's like, no, we want to celebrate your failure. I was like, what? You want to celebrate my failure? And he goes, well, you failed and you learned, and others can learn from that too. So I still remember this session to this day where I went in and I shared what I had done wrong, how I had quickly corrected it. I got more questions on that session I had done than really any other session I had done inside a company before, because people were like, how did you determine this? How did you fix it so fast? What were your mechanisms in place to ensure it didn't happen again? And then the next week I had 5 or 6 people who said, I avoided a similar situation because Sandy shared this. And then my last lesson learned was the real big focus of Amazon on learn and be curious. If you're in a meeting or doing a narrative review with Jeff or Andy, you're going to get asked thousands of questions. And one of the premises here is that if you look at the research done for most of the great innovators of our time, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, the Steve Jobs when he was alive, their trait, one of the traits they had is they ask a lot of questions. They learn and they're super curious. And so one of the things I learned at Amazon, that's something I've taken with me everywhere, is that you have to keep digging. You can't just stop. You have to learn and be curious. Now, a great example of this is we were really driving for artificial intelligence with AWS, and our customers, again, working backwards from the customer, kept telling us, Sandy, we don't have enough skills. We don't have enough skills. So if you ask the question, okay, how can we fix that? Your obvious answer is, let's have more universities teach it. Let's get more classes out there. Let's encourage more people to go into computer science. But that's really the easy answer. And if you keep asking and asking and asking, you need more people on AI. We felt that AI was going to be the future that don't have a computer science degree. So how do we get those people engaged? It needs to be fun, right? We've got a new generation coming up. How do we make it fun? And so we created a car called the Deep Racer. It was 1/18 the size of a real racing car, has IoT sensors on it, and you race the car by using reinforcement learning, which is a type of technology that you use to train learning models for AI. And by learning that, you can race your car around the track. So it's fun, right? It's kind of cool. We set up racing leagues around the world. So we had people in all countries. We had companies doing it, executives versus developers. We had universities doing it. In Asia, we had a huge Asia contest, and we wanted to attract non-technical people. One of the women who won the contest in the Philippines actually was a chef. She had never done any coding, and she had won this contest. And so that would never have happened if we had asked 1 or 2 or 3 questions. It only happened because we went deeper and we kept asking questions. We learned and we were curious, and that's how we really innovated to get more skills into AI. So I'd say those were the 3 big learnings. I have to say, I would go work at AWS time and time again. I learned so incredibly much. A great company and a great training ground for any entrepreneur who wants to, take something to the next level.
Yeah. And talking about curiosity, this is exactly the crowd that we have tuning in Billion Dollar Moves here. And we really want to dive into this chapter where you clearly acted on your curiosity with the clientele and the market that you saw emerging from the work you were doing at AWS, building on the blockchain and now moving into Web3. But of course, we're fresh off the chaos that was SBF, with crypto and sort of the bad news that has really landed and really, I guess, created a bad lens to Web3. And yet you remain steadfast that this is the future. Tell us a little bit more about why you're focused on Web3 and where you see this going.
Yeah, so first of all, one use case of blockchain is crypto. But there are so many other use cases. And the one that I've been focused on is digital identity built on top of blockchain. And the reason I'm so passionate about that use case is that, today we're in a Web 2 world. And in that Web 2 world, Sarah, we go and we log into Google, we log into TikTok with a username and password, which is your digital identity. But it really doesn't belong to us because all that data is actually owned by the platform. They monetize it and they get it. In fact, earlier today I was on with a reporter on some of our news, and he said to me that he had started this community for sharing his news and getting sources on Facebook. Yesterday, his entire group was just taken down. He doesn't know why. He didn't save any of the data. He's trying to get the data. Facebook said, you don't own that. We own that data. And so now he's left in this position where he put years of work into something, was taken down without him having any knowledge or understanding about why, and now he doesn't have any of that material. And so if you think about Web3, what Web3 does now is all of the data is stored on the blockchain, which means that no one company controls it. There's no platform controlling it. Actually, the data is yours, so you own it. You get to decide who sees it, when they get to see it, how often they get to see it, and how much they get to see. That's all your decision. So it really turns the model on its head. And because of blockchain that the digital identity platform is built on, it's secure, and it's programmable, and it's immutable, and it really enables you to control your data, which I believe firmly is a human right. Ownership of your digital identity is your essential human right, because it is you. I mean, now we do so much on digital. It is you. Why should somebody else own who you are? And so I really believe that this is a really crucial piece that will not go away. Now AI has come onto the scene. Everybody's kind of jumped from Web3 over to AI. In my mind, though, Sarah, this is not about jumping from one technology to another. It's about determining what are business problems that are out there that the tech can solve. And so one of the really big ones I just wrote about in Forbes is deep fakes. So I was asked to go and speak at an AI conference, and you're like, an AI conference? You just told me you're in Web3. But the reason they asked me to come and speak was that with these 500 CEOs, the number one problem that the CEOs said they had with AI is deep fakes. Like, how did they know someone wasn't going to replicate their CEO on a video, or change a tweet, or show a picture of the Pope and the puffer jacket that isn't real? How could people really determine that? Well, using a digital identity platform that's based on blockchain, you can actually verify, have social trust that's there that can prove that the video being shown, the tweet being sent, the picture being posted was actually you, was actually real. And so I believe that there is going to be an acceleration of Web3 because of AI. So for your investors, as you're looking at AI, I think AI, I'm a lover of AI. I've been doing it for 10 years. But don't forget that there are challenges with every new technology, and one of those challenges can be solved with Web3 and these digital platforms.
AI is eating the web as we speak, and what that means for business leaders is this. The time to embrace AI technology is now, because for people like us, automation helps us do more with less while continuing to meet and exceed business expectations. It's basically magic. So if you haven't tried HubSpot's new AI features, you should do that. Content Assistant and ChatSpot are two brand new tools that will immediately save you and your team's time. HubSpot's features run on ChatGPT's tech to help you make compelling content and manage your CRM way faster than before. We're talking ad copy, data analytics, workflow automations, all with a chat command. So work smarter, not harder, and head to HubSpot.com/artificial-intelligence to learn more about using AI to streamline your marketing, sales, and customer service ops. Absolutely love that way of thinking there. And ultimately, a lot of this is integrated, right? I mean, AI, people think it's a whole new vertical, but when you think about it, it's almost like a horizontal application across to solve the different problems that emerge. And that is the beauty of tech, really. And I want to go into Unstoppable. You chose this to be your next chapter after really working with some big names that have really influenced the tech industry. What did you see in Unstoppable that made you say this was the next chapter for you? And how has it evolved? Of course, it's become a unicorn since its first use case. Talk to us a little bit about that and why you made this bet.
Yeah, for me, any new technology, you've got to have an entry point so that you get eventually mass adoption. And I felt that digital identity was going to be that entry point, the way that people started in Web3. And that if we could find utility around that, that this could be a $1 billion move, right? Like you talk about, let's do our $1 billion move. I felt like this could be the $1 billion move. But not just that, I really passionately felt like data should be owned by the person, not by a platform, that really we needed to look at that. And there's so much power in what we're seeing today, I believe anyway, from overall, that I think that, as you're looking at your next move, you want to have an impact, right? It's about profit for a company, but it's also about purpose. And I know you, Sarah, I know what you do. You obviously do it really well, but you're also about purpose. You want to make sure that you're changing the world as you're doing it. And that's what I think that we have here. So let me just kind of show you one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it. So we talked about this being an entry point. And for me, being an entry point means that you can't have all the jargon. You've got to really have a use case, right? Utility is greater than hype. So there's been a lot of hype about Web3 and blockchain, but I really want to focus on the utility that it brings to the table. So here, one of the things that you're looking at is this is my digital identity. That's sandy.nft. Sandy.nft is actually a domain, if you think about it in a Web2 phraseology, but it's also an NFT. So it's like a super NFT because it can hold a lot of digital collectibles. Our first use case was taking sandy.nft and linking it into your crypto wallet so that you could, instead of typing in a long set of characters and letters, you could just type in sandy.nft. And that still drives, even today, with all of the stuff going on, 30 million resolutions for that sandy.nft to that long set of letters and numbers. 30 million resolutions every week come just as that one use case that we have. Here you can also see that this is my Ready Player Me avatar. If you're not familiar with Ready Player Me, in the Metaverse, when you have an avatar, 9 times out of 10, that avatar is going to be created by a company called Ready Player Me. So we partnered with them, and when you use sandy.nft to sign into a Metaverse, so here's the beauty, instead of having 100 different usernames and passwords, you have one, you sign in with sandy.nft. Now this avatar travels with you, so you can have a consistent brand in all those metaverses when they really take off. Over here you see all of my digital collectibles. And what's really valuable about these, if this really looks like kind of a LinkedIn page, but everything is credentialed. So Sarah, we were talking about the Super Bowl. I'm living in Scottsdale right now. The Super Bowl was in Phoenix, and I got to go to several of the breakfasts. I didn't get to the Super Bowl, but I got to talk to a lot of the NFL professionals, and they told me that if they had counted all the tweets and everything for everybody who said they went to the Super Bowl, the stadium would be 5 times bigger than it was, because people brag that they went, but they didn't actually go. So how do you know if someone went? So here inside of my digital identity, you can see that I have tickets that showcase, hey, I went to this Gary Vee event. I went to this Psyche investor event. I actually have a ticket that verifies that credentials me, that says I went there. And I think that's very powerful because people today are looking for something that they trust. Let's take education. So I was talking to LinkedIn, and they were telling me that 40% of people on LinkedIn who say they went to Harvard actually never went to Harvard. But how do you know that? And how can you find those people who didn't versus people who did? So here, inside of your digital identity, you have credentials. I believe in the future, we're already working with universities to put your diploma here. In the meantime, you've got certificates of classes, a class I took at MIT, a Metaverse class I took that actually has a diploma in here that says I actually took the class and I passed the class. How cool would that be if now I could trust all the data that I have about me on something like this, instead of something that was written by me that could be true, could be exaggerated, or maybe not true. And then the last thing I think is really important about this digital identity is because you are who you say you are on here, it's verified, you've got a humanity check. Now we're seeing a lot of these sub-communities or sub-tribes that come up. So for example, I could say, here's a dolphin club. I have to do certain things to get that badge. But once I get that badge, now I can communicate or engage all these other people who have that same likeness to me. And think about how many Web2 brands today are really looking to engage with real consumers, not bots, not something that's fake, but real people who purchased or bought what they have. And this is what got me so excited about Unstoppable, that ability to verify that you are a human, the ability to not just have a brand that's out there, but a verified credentialed brand that's there, and one that has utility. We have 860 integrations, so essentially 860 use cases out there that you can use and have value with this as well.
Absolutely love that. And of course, this segues very nicely into one of the announcements that is breaking today, in that you are adding to your in sort of the Web2 language of to your domain, another partner. Tell us a little bit more about that and why you're excited.
Yeah, so if you look at the world of Web3, there are two primarily players who are doing digital identities. One is a company called ENS. It's actually a DAO. It's not a company. It's a DAO. And they have as their digital identity extension
Which excuse me, sorry, Sandy, which is a decentralized.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, a decentralized autonomous organization. So DAOs are popping up everywhere now. Companies like Decentraland actually are not a company, but a DAO, which means that the community gets to vote on decisions. It's really, I mean, you could do a whole episode just on that. It's quite an interesting new phenomenon. But they have the number 2 extension, which is .eth, and Unstoppable has number 1. We have 3.6 million digital identities out there. And one of the things, again, working backwards from our customers, you asked me about lessons learned from AWS. I brought that with me. Our customers would love to have their brand that's not just sandy.nft or sandy.crypto, but also sandy.eth, so that I could go across all of these extensions with the same identity. So now that has come to fruition. So now you can buy your .eth digital identity from Unstoppable at the same time that you're buying .nft or .crypto. But more importantly, Sarah, we believe that this move also opens up the market for more widespread adoption. So with your .eth from Unstoppable, you can also pay with a credit card. So before, if you were buying a .eth, you had to pay with crypto. And you and I both know setting up a wallet, going to an exchange, getting currency, it's really hard to learn how to do that. And I just want to make a purchase. I just want to buy sandy.eth and I have to do all this other stuff. So now you can buy your .eth with just simply a credit card or PayPal. In addition, if you bought something from ENS, it would be stored in a wallet, in a crypto wallet. Again, that's really hard to do. So what we did is we created something called a vault. So automatically your sandy.eth would be stored in a vault. It's still owned by you. We're just holding it until you decide to get a wallet or you decide to transfer it somewhere else. We will store that for you. Again, making it very easy now for lots of people in Web2 to come over without a wallet and leverage and use this. And then the other big thing is your .eth expires, right? It's a subscription. So you have to renew it every year. And in fact, on the last call I was just on, the guy said he let his .eth expire by 2 months. It was sent to a different email address and he lost his identity. He lost his .eth because he forgot that it was going to have to renew. And so what we've also added in is an auto renewal feature so that you don't have to remember. You don't have to log it into your digital calendar. We will auto renew that for you with your permission every year. And so we believe that this opens up the door for lots of new people to come in and experiment with Web3 digital identity.
Taking a little bit of a zoom out, making a comparison so that it's easy for others to understand. This almost is like the domain name business, right? DNS, sort of the domain name system in Web 2, where we have the .com and .org, and now these are different extensions. Can you tell us, and of course it's governed by a board called ICANN. Can you talk to us a little bit about the governance in Web 3? And what the benefit is? Why would someone want to have a .eth when they already have like you the .nft and everything else? What's the benefit of having all of this? It just sounds like a lot of investment for extensions.
Yeah, so first let's talk about the governance board. So ICANN has been around for a long time and has done such a great job of managing .com and .org so that there aren't collisions, right? Like when you go to aws.com, you're going to aws.com. In the Web3 world, when everything started out, it was really like the wild, wild west, right? If you went to sandy.nft, are you really going to sandy.nft? So we recently helped to sponsor with the organization a group called Web3 Domain Alliance. And that Web3 Domain Alliance is taking a lot of the best practices from ICANN, but running it more like a Web3 ethos, more of a community-based approach. We have 57 companies inside of it. We have a set of bylaws and governing principles to protect all of the users. So this really is a sign to me that Web3 is maturing, right? In all the technologies I've looked at, when you start getting standards bodies that form and alliances and consortiums to come together as an industry, it really is a good sign for the industry. So that's a governing board for Web3. It's the Web3 Domain Alliance, ICANN for Web2. So why would you want to hold all of these? Well, just like you do in the Web2 world. So if I am, let's say that I am Walmart, I want Walmart.com, but I don't want Walmart.net and Walmart.org and Walmart.ai to be owned by someone else because I own that brand. So if you look at that digital identity, it's really who I am. So typically you'll want to clean sweep all of those extensions so that when someone goes to Sarah.eth or Sarah.nft, it's the same person, same identity. This is really important with brands in order to own all of them. Just like they did in the Web 2 world, they'll want to do the same thing in the Web 3 world. And in fact, if you look today of the Fortune 100 companies, Sarah, already 11% of them have already secured all of their unstoppable domains.
Wow.
11%, and we're early. We're at very early days, right?
So 11%, that's still not mass adoption, but of course, as you always say, I always hear you saying this, we're in the dial-up modem phase of the internet, right? And now we're talking a lot about the technology of Web3 because we're only starting to grasp it. But imagine the Web2, right? Back in the day, we were asking similar questions. What do you think, as someone who has lived through the different cycles, what do you think will be the tipping point for mass adoption here?
I think the tipping point for mass adoption will come when there is a great use case that everybody uses and they don't even know it's Web3. I think we're starting to see some of those today. I just read an article for Forbes about what Nike's doing and what Starbucks is doing. Their entire loyalty programs today are all Web3 based. Nobody really knows that. But the underpinning technology is Web3. And why is that? Well, if you look at loyalty, one of the big cost issues for loyalty is how do I know that you're the one buying that coffee or that you're the one buying that shoe? Can't I pass something off to someone else to go in the store with it? A lot of companies, I was just talking to Flipkart, they actually have a piece of paper that's like a passport that they stamp. So imagine if I lose it, I don't have all my stamps in it, or if I got my stamp and I went into the store, then I could pass it to you and you could run into the store. And so having something that is credentialed and verified, that I actually know that you bought it and that you're going to get something for what you bought, is the whole premise of Web3. So we see these companies, the new one is IHOP. So I don't know how many international folks you have, but this is the International House of Pancakes.
Yeah.
Who just started, believe this or not, they just started a loyalty program. The underpinning technology is Web3.
Wow.
I just did a discussion this morning. 7-Eleven announced on July 11th, they're now using the NFT technology for loyalty. So I think this is going to sneak up on us, that's going to be one of the big use cases. The second one I think that's going to really accelerate this is AI and this whole area of deep fakes. People are demanding to know, is this real or not? And I think that blockchain technology is the top technology to do that. And then you need some sort of identity. So I think that that's going to be the second one that will accelerate. And my prediction, Sarah, will be over the next year, that deep fake area will be interesting to look at. And I think it will accelerate adoption of both. I just did the Forbes article on deep fakes and AI and Web3. And I mean, that article has just catapulted. Like there's so much interest in it, right?
The area of deepfakes is definitely top of mind, especially with everything that's happening in AI, right? And disinformation, of course, in an increasingly polarized world, this is a real risk upon all of us. So I'm glad that that's being looked at seriously. But the other actually use case that I was hoping you'd talk about, but didn't, that really occurred to me as I was thinking and preparing for our interview here, is that of healthcare. In that with Web3, what in essence happens is your identity follows you. and you control that identity. And of course, we work with a lot of healthcare founders and funders where the system in America is clearly broken. There's a lot to do with even HIPAA rules, right? Basically, the privacy protection, but it's data that's stored in silos. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Web3 could really help healthcare?
Yeah, and this one is a killer use case. I just don't know if it's because of HIPAA. I don't know if it can happen fast enough. So here's what I see happening. So I was just in New York and I met with 100 new healthcare startups. And they told me one of the big things, again, working backwards from the customer, that they're trying to solve is that there are so many misdiagnoses that occur because the records that come into the doctors aren't complete. You only get part of the story. So because of that, they told me that 32% of misdiagnosis occurs because you don't have all the records. And that's just what's documented. So they were saying it could be up to 60%. And so now let's think about digital identity. So what if in your digital identity, again, you share it if you want to. I showed you my public view. I didn't show you all the data I have private. Imagine now if inside of your digital identity, your blood pressure, your temperature, your heart rate, any tests that you've had with allergies, your dental records, everything was in your digital identity. And now you could share everything about yourself to any doctor so that if they were evaluating you for cancer or for a serious illness, that they would now have access to everything that was in there. The other interesting thing is what happens when you go to another country. So I was in Brazil and I had a serious accident and I had to get my records down to Brazil so they could do a surgery. Do you know, Sarah, it took over 18 hours for them to get those records to Brazil. I couldn't have my emergency surgery for 18 hours because I was out of it. I couldn't explain to them what else was going on with my body. So they had to wait for all those records. So imagine if it was in my digital identity and they could have gotten access to that. Maybe my husband could have given them access to that so they could have looked immediately. I mean, I could have had immediate surgery. So there are so many use cases here. And the good news is I see so many startups focused on, I had 100 startups in New York City who are focused on solving this problem. And I would say the big inhibitor to making it a reality right now is a lot of the HIPAA standards and requirements that are out there. But there are people exploring it. One of the she had been a pediatric surgeon. She's now started this company because she saw so many kids misdiagnosed because you didn't have the full records. She now has 10 use cases where she's gotten full records and the diagnosis accuracy has improved by 97% because she has that data. And her envision is that each of those would become NFTs and they would be stored inside your digital identity. So I am really excited about what's to come there. I'm really excited to partner with someone who can help us with HIPAA because the technology's there. It's not about the technology. It's about the policies and everything else around it that's really blocking that use case.
Hey, by now you know that Billion Dollar Moves is proud to be part of the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Imperfect Action, hosted by Steph Taylor, is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Imperfect Action is a bite-sized online marketing podcast for business owners. So join Steph Taylor as she answers all your questions and deep dives into the nitty-gritty of online marketing, content marketing, social media marketing, and marketing strategy as a whole for business owners. An episode that I particularly enjoyed was 3 content swaps that will make you sell more in a launch. In this episode, Steph suggests 3 different types of content for you to use and those to avoid to make more sales in your next launch. Listen to Imperfect Action wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, and I love how you brought this point up. We're of course in this era where discussion and I'm in DC, so it's very close to where I am, but the discussions on the Hill on technology, the abuse of social media, the abuse of different technologies, is there enough being said about Web3 to enable it? I mean, things exactly HIPAA being top of mind right now, right? To be able to address the rules in the right way to enable these technologies to work in a positive manner.
Well, here's one of the things that really struck me, Sarah, when we were in Abu Dhabi and then, I went down to Dubai. I found that a lot of the leadership in the Middle East has taken time to truly understand the technology and the impacts of the technology. I was recently in DC and we were going to meet with some of the lawmakers, but it turned out that they sent their staffs to learn. And then so what's going to happen is you're going to teach the staff, then the staff is going to educate someone, and then they're going to, so a lot's going to be lost. So I'm actually anxious about what's going to happen in the United States in particular, because a lot of our lawmakers haven't taken the time to understand artificial intelligence, the Metaverse, and what we need to look out for kids, the impact that digital identity and blockchain could have right now, and all of these deep fakes and everything that's starting to come about. I think you really need, in today's world, you need an understanding of technology in order to make the right laws and to make the right policies. And I see that happening. I was just in Singapore, last year with you. We met with some government officials. Again, they really took the time to understand what was happening. And so that is one of my concerns that I have, is how can we mobilize, like you and I and others mobilize to get everybody in DC who's a policymaker or lawmaker to understand the impacts of these amazing technologies. I think that could be a real game changer.
Pivoting here a little bit is the marketplace. Tell us a little bit more about this.
The next announcement, we talked about .eth and we talked about how that will bring in more of the community. Well, the first question that people ask me once they get their digital identity and they set up their beautiful profile, so they have their brand, okay, what can I do now? Well, the marketplace now, very much patterned after what AWS did with their marketplace, or Amazon did, like offering all these goods in one place. Now you can see all of the Web3 applications and Web2 applications, by the way, that can use and leverage that digital identity. So it has things in it like email or browsers where you can use your Web3 domain, or things like tax programs, games, metaverses. So now instead of having to go and search and look, now you've got a marketplace where you can go and see all of the amazing applications that you can use today with Web3. I think it's pretty phenomenal. We are the first in the market with a Web3 marketplace. There are NFT marketplaces like OpenSea, Rarible, and Magic Eden, but this is now a Web3 marketplace. This actually has dApps, or decentralized applications, in it. In fact, I had one investor this morning say, until you put it all in one place, I had no idea how many people were still building in the space. You can also do recommendations on the space. So just like you buy a product on Amazon, they just had Prime Day, and you go and you rate it. You can also rate and recommend products or applications on the marketplace as well. And for this month, we also have a set of featured applications. And because the number one question I keep being asked is, how do Web3 and AI partner together? What's the killer use case for those? Today we're featuring our top applications in the marketplace that actually have imparted AI into a Web3 context. So folks like Alchemy, who have added it into development, right? Because you can use AI to help you develop a great blockchain application. Or Brave and Opera, who have embedded it for search criteria. So we've got a whole, or even like, some exchanges who are embedded it for investment, like how do you invest in the Web3 space? So all of these applications today are featured there. So again, it's just more about utility is greater than hype, being able to see how you can use it and what you can do with it.
Yeah, Sandy, and of course, I have an investor lens, so curious as to, the business model and how Unstoppable, as a unicorn, which only 2% of startups, get that coveted status in many ways. Is this an equivalent of an app store, essentially, the marketplace, when you think about it in the Web2 world?
Yeah, it's very similar. Now, today we haven't monetized it because we just announced it. But if you look at like monetization for an AWS marketplace, you charge for the featured app position. So that could be one of the business models. You also do fees to list in the marketplace. And so, from a monetization we can do that. Also, value-added features like analytics that you might want to use for how many people actually hit your tile that's in the marketplace. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now in terms of monetizing that marketplace. And we do hope that this helps investors, everybody that you're talking to today, go out there and look. And I'm hoping it's also going to encourage some of those, what I would call verticals, like healthcare. There are some healthcare Web3 applications out there. There are tax applications to come out and start revealing themselves and the impact that they can have in the space.
Love it. Well, I think it's very smart. I will say, you think about sort of the domains that you have now. Was it 3.6 million, 310 coins and tokens supported over 1,000 partners? It almost makes complete sense because everyone has to go to your one-stop shop, right? To then execute on everything Web3.
That's right. You got it. That's the whole play here. Making it easier for us to expand the marketplace too, right, Sarah? I mean, during this time, the whole play can't be to compete just for your little niche. You've got to expand it. And so, a marketplace, if you go out there and you look at it, it's very similar to a Web2 marketplace, so there's no new learning curve. Our goal is to make it so easy that everybody is welcome in, not just the Web3 fanatics, but the entire internet population is now welcomed in and feels comfortable using and leveraging these technologies.
Oh, love that. Well, Sandy, very exciting and congratulations, as I said earlier, on all the literally rapid progress since, we were hanging together just feels like, was it a year ago? So really congratulations to you and Matthew and the team at Unstoppable. But now, one of my favorite segments, billion-dollar questions. Are you ready, Sandy?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right. Threads or Twitter?
Ooh. Oh shoot! I have to pick one, right? Because I like both for different reasons. I'm still going to say Twitter.
Ooh, a habit you've picked up that has changed your life?
Asking a lot of questions, being more curious and not just accepting what someone tells me, but being able to ask them and question, figure out how things work.
Oh, this is a good question. So, Sandy, to the outside world, you've got it all. You've got the credentials. You've done your time. You move from big name to big name and you're on to the big thing. What still is your biggest insecurity?
Ooh, biggest insecurity. Well, I have a bucket list and I want to get to my entire bucket list and I still have a lot of things on that. And Sarah, this is a good story. When I was 18 years old, we had a motivational speaker come in and he talked about he had done a bucket list and he said, always keep refreshing that list and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So I actually still have my list from when I was 18.
Wow.
Can you believe that? And I've checked off most of the stuff on there, including skydiving and doing some, outrageous things, but also becoming an executive and filing patents and things like that. But I'm now expanding my list, right? And so I really want to do, I've been to 89 countries now. I want to go to 100. So I just keep expanding my list. And I think that I'm a very goal-oriented person. So it gives me goals. It keeps me going, keeps me young, keeps me, moving.
Okay. What's an opinion you have that most people don't agree with?
Oh, wow. An opinion I have that most people don't agree with. Well, it might be around Web3. I still think that Web3 is going to emerge as a big victor in the space. I think a lot of people are writing it off and saying, it's done, it's over. In fact, Europe just published, I don't know if you saw the European article, they just published Web3's gone, we're on to Web 4, and here's what Web 4 is. But Web 4 is basically Web 3 plus AI plus the Metaverse, so it's kind of funny. But I think that's probably one opinion that people debate me a lot. Oh, you should not have gone into Web 3, it's nothing. Come back out to AI, come back to your homeland and AI.
Oh, and this is the last one and my favorite one, so you can spend a little bit of time on it. What is the best leadership advice you've ever received, or the, excuse my French, shittiest that you have received to warn people never to listen to this?
Well, I would say the worst advice I ever got from a leader is that, view every other executive as a competitor. and just make sure that you're always beating them out, that you always have better achievements than them. Worst advice I ever got. Like, anytime you're in a company, you want to build a team and you want to collaborate. So if you view them as a competition, you're missing the real competition, which is out in the marketplace. I would say the very best advice I ever got was around, I was presenting a narrative at Amazon. We present narratives. And I thought that I had really gone big. I thought I had asked for a lot of stuff, a lot of investment, was really like blue skying it. And I still remember to this day, Andy Jassy, who's now the CEO of Amazon, looking at it, and he said, Sandy, this is a really good idea, but I wish you had thought big. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I thought big. And so afterwards, I got a one-on-one with him, and he said, you still didn't rise above and think like this could impact everything at Amazon. Like you have it impacting AWS, that you should have thought bigger. And that always is like that little voice inside my head. This is my idea. Did I think big enough? Did I raise up enough to really think big in the space? And so, it's still today. In fact, I used it this morning. I was pulling together a proposal for a customer, and I was like, did I think big enough? And so I actually went bigger and presented it today, and the customer was like, this is exactly what I'm wanting. And had I gone with my initial proposal, I don't think they would have been as excited and dreaming with me about what the potential could be.
Ooh, that gave me chills. And what a note to end on. Are you thinking big enough? And are you truly honoring the potential that you truly have to make a big impact? Well, Sandy, this has been an amazing, phenomenal conversation. As always, time spent with you is always so much fun. And I'm so grateful for everything that you're doing and for leading truly as a strong voice in the space. As you know, we all need diverse leaders, and you're a champion for so many of us.
Thank you, Sarah. So great to see you again. And I'm so proud of what you're accomplishing with your billion-dollar moves. And I just wish you all the best. And I know you don't need good luck because I know you've got great skill. But I do think that you are going to really turn this world around and have a phenomenal impact. So thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. And I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thanks so much for tuning in this week. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow our socials on Sarah Chen Global to get the latest on the show. It would really help me out too if you enjoyed this to rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts and share your favorite episodes with a friend. I'm Sarah Chen-Spellings, and you've been listening to Billion Dollar Moves.